Jane for leading us in prayer. Back in 2001, William Kankwamba was a 14-year-old boy living in rural Malawi. He'd been forced to drop out of school because of a terrible drought, and his parents could no longer afford the school fees. 8 years later, he was hailed as a genius, having written a book, touring the United States, appearing on chat shows, being lauded by Al Gore, an environmentalist, and sharing a stage with Bono of U2 rather. What changed his life so dramatically? It all began with a desire to improve life for his family. Like most Malawians, he had to go to sleep at about 7 in the evening because there was no electricity in the house for lighting. So he began to put his mind to how he could change this. One day during a visit to a local library, he found a DIY science guide to making a wind generator, and he set about trying to make it. There are two problems that he faced, though. Firstly, you don't find many materials that you need to make wind generators in rural Malawi. And secondly, he had no money. But that didn't discourage him. Using scrap discarded by others, tractor fans, old shock absorbers, PVC pipes, and a rusty bicycle frame, and anything else he could lay his hands on, he built a basic windmill. He mounted a home-made generator on top, and eventually got 1 and then 4 bulbs and then 2 radios to get power. Soon neighbours arrived to charge their phones from this electricity, and he went on to build other windmills for other local villages, able to pump water and generate electricity. The idea spread, and he became known as the boy who harnessed the wind. And there's actually a play about to open in London about his life. Here's the thing, why did I tell you that story? Everyone else around him saw rubbish, but he saw possibility. He saw things differently. He took a different perspective, and it changed what was possible. And today I want to talk to you about the power of perspective. The power of perspective. We're in a sermon series looking at the life of David, and today we come to probably the most famous story about him, at least in popular culture, the ultimate underdog story. A young shepherd boy with a puny catapult and a few stones who defeats a giant warrior nearly 10 feet tall. And if you're anything like me, I've often found this story quite encouraging, because I think deep down many of us feel, from time to time at least, like the underdog. We feel that the odds are stacked against us, and we can feel like life is a constant battle where everything is much bigger than us. We all have our Goliaths, don't we? Whether that be personally, it might be that your challenge right now is trying to figure out what to do with your life, or a personal battle, an illness of some sort, a mental health challenge, a habit you can't seem to shake. Maybe it's a challenge for your family. You feel like in a family you're facing a Goliath. A season of having to raise young children, the challenges that come with that. Looking after older relatives. It might be in your workplace you feel like there's a challenge. There's a question or a problem you just can't seem to tackle. Things are changing too quickly. Maybe as a church we face our Goliaths. How do we share the good news of Jesus with our community? How do we help to be Jesus in the community and tackle some of the problems of loneliness and addiction, the cost of living? Our society definitely has its Goliaths, right? Growing division, problems that seem too big for us. And perhaps this story is reassuring to know sometimes the underdog does win. This story is encouraging that the little guy sometimes makes it. And that's obviously true of this story, but I want to suggest to you this morning that something deeper is actually going on here. The message of this story isn't just take heart, it's okay, sometimes the odds are stacked against you, but you might have a chance. I think the story is actually an invitation from God to shift our perspective when it comes to the Goliaths that we face in life, to look at things differently. In our personal challenges, in our families, in our workplaces, So imagine the scene, if you will. We have two armies camped on opposite sides of a huge valley. The Israelites on one side and the Philistines on the other. And from the Philistine army emerges one man, a man like no other. We're told he's effectively something like 9 feet 9 inches tall. And that his armour alone weighs 125 pounds. That's 125 bags of sugar, if that helps to quantify it. This is a mighty man, and he stands up with a challenge. Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and let him come down to me. If he's able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. Then the Philistines said, this day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Let me just stop there and make a few observations. Firstly, Saul, the king of Israel, is a mighty warrior himself, a great leader. He has won a battle or two in his time. And even he is terrified. And I think that tells us something about the scale of the task and the fear that Goliath has put into the Israelites. But it also tells us, I think, that Saul has lost something. They've fought many battles. God has come through for them time and time again. But this time, something different. They've lost something. Instead of being filled with faith and courage, they are terrified and they are paralyzed. And I think that's sometimes what happens to us when we face our Goliaths. They fill us with fear and they paralyze us. And we feel unable to move. Secondly, this is not the first time that they have faced the Philistines. It's a constant thing in the life of Israel. Fighting their neighbours. Again and again and again, the same people. But this seems like the final straw. And isn't that true for us at times in life? We face the same things. We think it's done and it comes back. And eventually, I think, sometimes we can stop believing that things will change. And we settle, as it were, in a valley of fear. And then thirdly to say, this is all happening in Israel. They're at home. And even here, there are giants. It's supposed to be comfortable and safe. But actually, even here, things aren't easy. And I think it's worth acknowledging that, because the truth is sometimes people like me stand at the front and say something like, well, just become a Christian and your life will all be easygoing. Everything will be fine. And if you've been a Christian more than 2 minutes, you realise that's a pile of rubbish. Following Jesus doesn't remove all our giants. Having faith doesn't guarantee an easy life. Maybe you resonate with the power of Goliath in your own life this morning. And maybe you feel a little bit fearful about something you face, or your family faces, or the church faces, or the world faces. Maybe you face the same battle again and again, and you feel like, actually, I'm on the verge of giving up, or you know you've given up. Things are hard. But I think there is good news in this story this morning. I know there's good news. Because we have grown men, seasoned soldiers cowering, but along comes a boy. David, the shepherd boy who we were introduced to last week. And amazingly, he was not fearful. He has a different perspective. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him, he says to King Saul. And we know how that ends, don't we? We heard it in our reading. David takes out his slingshot, takes down Goliath, runs to him, and cuts his head off. I used to love that detail in Sunday school. But here's the thing I want us to notice this morning. David sees things differently. He sees the same giant that everyone else sees, but he has a different perspective. And that changes everything. And although this is in many ways an underdog story, I just want to offer a couple of insights into this text, because I think there's more going on than we often realise. Firstly, Goliath. We tend to see Goliath as unstoppable. He's huge, a seasoned soldier. But there are a few clues in the text that he may have actually had a hidden weakness. Twice, if you read the whole story, it mentions that he has a shield bearer who goes out ahead of him. Someone to go ahead of him. He doesn't need that. So why does it mention it twice? Secondly, Goliath talks about David come at him with sticks. But David doesn't have a stick. He's got a sling. And then thirdly, Goliath demands that David comes to him rather than just charging at this little boy, teenager probably. That'd be terrifying, right? You've got a 9'9" high man running at you. You don't need him to come to him. And some biblical scholars think that actually, for these reasons, it's possible that Goliath has a condition that can come with being an enormous person. That means he's actually partially sighted. And that this becomes his Achilles' heel in battle. His size hid a critical weakness. So often we can overestimate strength when we face challenges in life. Truth is, often our eyes get locked on the size of the problem that we face, and our thoughts can end up magnifying it. It's so big, it's so great, it can't be overcome. And if we're not careful, we can even, in a sense, glorify it. And part of this story is an invitation to help us to shift our focus, to not see strength in quite the way that we sometimes see it. That's Goliath. And what about David? Well, David, we often imagine David as small and weak, holding like a child's catapult. But David wasn't helpless in this situation. He knew what he had. Goliath didn't. Because his sling, it's not a catapult, it's a sling, was actually a deadly weapon. A skilled slinger apparently could launch a stone the size of a cricket ball at speeds which have an impact comparable to a handgun. This is a deadly weapon that he is carrying. And my point is, we often see David as having nothing, just having a few tiny little stones and a mini catapult, but actually he has something fearsome at his disposal. But greater than that, Goliath is relying on his strength. He is self-reliant. But David is God-reliant. David, if you think back to last week, he was the last person to be chosen, rejected in a sense, and on the outskirts of his family. And when we read through this reading, it's obvious that his brothers are embarrassed by his presence here. This is not a place for teenage boys. But he has a confidence rooted in experience as a shepherd in the hills. He's faced lions, he's faced bears, and in every situation, God was with him. His trust isn't in himself, it's in God. He believes that God is able, that this is his battle, and that God will bring deliverance. David looks to God, that means he sees what he has been given differently. And he sees, therefore, the Goliath differently. He sees possibility. Last week we explored this idea of David being anointed, and we all in turn being anointed by God. David in this situation has God-anointed strength to take on what's before him. Goliath saw weakness, where actually there was God-anointed strength. And I wonder if there's an invitation here to see what we have at our disposal as people anointed by him. We all face challenges. But we have personal access to the King of the universe. Perhaps we have more in our hands than we ever really realise. Sometimes perhaps we need to change our perspective on what God has given us. I love this quote by Marianne Williamson. You may be familiar with. I think it comes, it's been kind of quoted sometimes as Nelson Mandela, but it's not actually from him. She says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within. Born to make manifest the glory of God that is within. Isn't that an exciting thought? I don't know whether you find that quote challenging. I do. Born to manifest the glory of God. So let's come and ask the question, what does that mean for us today as we face our battles? The temptation is to say, well, let's just be like David, right? Just trust God, get back out there, take on your giant, whatever it might be like David, pluck up the courage, you can do this. But this is not a motivational speech, hopefully. God is not calling us simply to dust down our slingshot, as it were, and get back out there. Tackle things we've been struggling for years. I think it's a simple invitation to look up and to shift our perspective. And ultimately it's because of this reason. Because there is someone who's already gone into the valley and fought for us. In the story of David and Goliath, we are not David. Jesus is. Jesus is the one who fights on our behalf. He is the one who defeats giants. Jesus came and stepped into the valley of shame and hell, death and darkness. The odds were against him. How can one man change the whole course of human history? The forces of darkness seemed unassailable. He faced a giant of epic proportions, the ultimate giant, death itself. All the giants rolled into one. But 3 days later, he rose again. And so we can know with assurance, we're still in the season of Easter technically, that ultimately every giant, anything we might face has been defeated by him. Every evil has been defeated by him. He has triumphed. When he died on the cross and rose to life, he did it. He overcame. And in a sense, we are on his team. And it's the winning team. Something shifts in us when we look up and see him. It's not about what we can do, how good a catapult slingsman we are. It's about what he has done and what is still to do. And I just want to be clear at this point. I am not minimizing the struggles we all face, the crippling, life-debilitating power of some of the challenges that I know many people in this room have faced for a long time. I'm not talking about a quick fix. Just believe this and everything will be okay. God is not a slot machine. You don't just put in faith and get out the outcome you want. But the best thing I think we can do when we face our Goliaths is to lift our eyes higher than the 9 feet 9 inch giants we face, to the living God. Because ultimately the question isn't how big is the giant. The question is how big is God? How do we change our perspective? I wonder whether we might start with this. Maybe there's one practice I'd encourage you to do, and it's worship. Worship has the power to change our perspective. When we worship, we see God for who he is. Our eyes are opened. I've told you this story before, but I think it's a good one. We were on camping many years ago now when our kids were very small. I don't like camping, and this is proven to be true by this experience. It was a nightmare holiday. It rained non-stop. It was cold. It was wet. We were having no fun whatsoever. And we felt a weight upon us as we kind of tried to make this thing happen. And it just was like horrible. And then to top it all, we went to go and visit Lucy, my wife's sister, who lived a few miles away. And we were driving away from her house, having escaped the rain, and our car broke down. And we were stranded. And I felt incredibly down, frustrated, and fed up. And we managed to get back to Lucy's sister's house, spent the night there, next morning I wake up and I don't always get this sort of thing, but I just had this kind of almost voice in my head, like God saying to me, Stu, I want you to worship this morning. And I was like, yeah, God, can you not see I'm a bit busy right now? Got to phone the garage, got to get this car sorted, we've got 3 children, we're really not happy, I'm a little bit stressed. We'll come back to that maybe a little bit later. This is not the time to be singing some songs, right? So an hour goes by, and I hear this voice again. And by this point, we're out on a walk, I think, and I'm just like, yeah, God, I'm really not feeling it right now. My mind is really on this car, which is going to cost us a lot of money to sort out. And yeah, can we just wait? I'll come back to that maybe on Sunday. Another hour goes past, and by this time we found a playground, the kids are semi-happy. And I hear it again. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a bit slow. I think you're trying to get my attention. This recurring thought, I want you to worship. And I was like, okay, where do I start right now? And I had this little thought, I just want you to thank me. Really? Can you not see what's happening right now? Okay. So I began to think, well, what can we thank for? Well, we could have broken down somewhere miles away from here. It could have been really disastrous. So thank you, God, that we are all safe. Thank you for this environment, and thank you that we're outside and it's sunny today. Thank you for my family. I just kind of went on from there, just thanking God. And then something that just began to shift in me. Actually, 2 things happened. Firstly, my mood began to lift as I was reminded of God's goodness and power as I gave thanks to him. And we went back to the house, and just a few hours later, the garage friends said, well, this is really weird, but we've been looking at your car for the last 24 hours, and we know that something was wrong with it, and we just turned the key on now, because it wouldn't start, but now it's starting, and we've not done anything. And I can't explain that to you. You can come and pick it up. Now, maybe that's a coincidence, but I don't think so. There's something about worship that fuels faith in us. God loves faith. He loves to respond to it. And I wonder whether worship had a potency that morning to change the circumstance. So this is an invitation to us as individuals, as families, as a church family, to shift our perspective this morning, to seek to adopt a perspective of faith for the Goliath situations we face. Faith not in ourselves, but in who God is and what he is able to do in us and through us. So whatever Goliath you may face, let me encourage you, lift your eyes higher than 9 feet 9 inches tall. See the God that is bigger and greater than anything we might face. Find the power of perspective to change what is possible. Let's stand together. The worship team is going to come, because what I want us to do this morning is to put this into practice. To have an opportunity as we worship to invite God to shift our perspective, to lift our eyes to him, and to find faith whatever we might face today. So let me pray as we enter into this. As ever, there'll be a space at the front. If you feel this morning you would love someone to pray with you, to come alongside you in whatever challenge you're facing, we'd love to do that. But let me pray as we invite God to minister to us, to give us the gift of faith this morning. Lord God, we look to you, the one who is higher and greater than we could ever imagine, the one more kind and gracious, rich in mercy than we'll ever know. And we come before you as we are, with our hopes and dreams, our fears and our failures. We come before you, we lay the Goliaths, the giants that we all face before you. Lord, perhaps where we have given up change, would you, even this morning, spark some perhaps where we're on the verge of giving up, would you come alongside us in this moment? And Lord, I pray, even in very practical, tangible ways, would you give us fresh insight to the challenges we face? Would we hear your voice, even with solutions to problems that seem unsolvable? Not in our own strength, but in yours. And Lord, as we worship you now, would you impart to us the gift of faith? As we lift our gaze